Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 5th. Feels like a Monday. But anyway, um, I'm reading in Leviticus, and that's in the Old Testament, and it's all the laws that God had given to the people. And his idea was to keep them together, to keep them honored and righteous, and to tell them all the things they should do to to honor him and serve him and to be his people of Israel. But there's a couple things that caught my eye that I think we could learn from. And it starts in 50, and he says, "You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, or honor the person of the mighty. In righteousness you shall judge your neighbor. You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people, nor shall you take a stand against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. And you shall not take vengeance, nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." Now, can you do that yourself? Do you have any grudges against anybody? People that you don't really like, um, or you'd like to somehow get vengeance? Of course, the Lord says vengeance is His, but He really wants to keep them together. He wants them to love each other and to take care of each other, not be telling on each other and not be holding grudges and not be preferring the rich over the poor. He wanted them to just be one people. And when we came as the Gentiles, he wanted us to join them and become his adopted brothers and sons and daughters. And so I'm not, yes, and it's kind of interesting that all the way in the New Testament, Jesus says you have one commandment, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself and to love God with all your heart and mind and soul. Just those two things. But that's what all of these kind of wrap up, is God wanted them to learn to love, not to be vengeful, not to be hateful, because they were inexperienced people. They had been slaves. They had seen cruelty done to them, and so they could have been doing cruelty to their neighbors. And God was trying to tell them. He says, you can rebuke your neighbor, but don't bear sin because of him. And that says, again, in the Bible, in other places, it says, be angry, but do not sin. Yes, we don't have to tolerate what they do. We don't have to be their best friends. All we have to do is try to love them as people, as children of God, and forgive them. That's a big one, to forgive them. And, he reminds them over and over, I am the Lord. I'm the one saying this. I want you guys to get along. And I think that's what he's still saying today. I want you guys to get along. You don't have to like the other guy. You don't have to, well, you have to love him. You don't have to like him. You have to love him as a person of God. You don't have to like what they do. You don't have to see them every day or be under all their judgments and everything. All you have to do is just love them and be around if they ever need anything. And it's just interesting. He says you shouldn't be telling on your people. Don't take a stand against them. He says, especially if you take a stand against the life of your neighbor. And then he says, I am the Lord. So he doesn't want us to be deciding who lives and who dies and telling on them. We should try to solve our problems among ourselves and just always look to Jesus if we have any doubts. That's not easy, and that's one of their many, many laws that they had to follow. And they had to do that, and if they didn't, there was consequences. And if we don't, there's also consequences if we don't learn to get along with people. Obviously, we see wars among countries because they can't get along. But we see a lot of fights among people because they can't get along. And nowadays, people are just shooting each other because they can't get along. So that's where it ends up going. And God didn't want that. He wanted people to love each other, to get along. He wanted the Israelites to know they were a special people, children of God. And we were very fortunate that we got to come in and be part of that family. So let's act like family. Act like better than family. Okay, you have a great day and God bless you.